Days by Jules Verne, translated by George Makepeace Towle. Chapter 15, in which the bag of banknotes disgorges some thousands of pounds more. The train entered the station, and Passpartout, jumping out first, was followed by Mr. Fogg, who assisted his fair companion to descend.
Phileas Fogg intended to proceed at once to the Hongkong steamer in order to get outdoors comfortably set for the voyage. He was willing to leave first while they were still on dangerous ground.
Just as he was leaving the station, a policeman came up to him and said, "Mr. Phileas Fogg?" "I am he."
"Ah, this is the man, your servant," added the policeman, pointing Passpartout. "Yes, be so good, both of you, as to follow Mr. Fogg betrayed no surprise
whatever. The policeman was a representative of the law, and law is sacred to an Englishman.
Passpartout tried to reason about the matters about the policeman, tapped him with his stick, and Mr. Fogg made him some signal to obey. "May this young lady go with us?" asked he.
"May," replied the policeman.
Mr. Fogg, Aouda, and Passpartout were conducted towards the parking garage, sort of the four-wheeled carriages drawn by two horses, on which they took their places were driven away.
No one spoke during the 20 minutes which elapsed before they reached their destination.
They first passed through the black towns to which its narrow streets, its miserable dirty huts, and its squalid population, and through this European town which it presented,
shaded by coconut trees and bristling with masts, where, although it was early morning, elegantly dressed horsemen and handsome equipages were passing back and forth.
The carriage stopped before a small-looking house, which, however, did not have the appearance of private dimension.
Having requested his prisoners, for so truly they might be called, to descend, conducted them into a room with barred windows, and said,
"All affairs before Judge Aouda at 8:30. He then retired and closed the doors. "What, we're prisoners!" exclaimed Passpartout, falling into a chair.
To a chair. Aouda, with an emotion she tried to conceal, said to Mr. Fogg, "Sir, you must leave me to my fate. It is on my account that you receive this treatment. It is for having saved me."
Phileas Fogg contented himself with saying that it was impossible. It was quite unlikely that he should be arrested for preventing a shoot.
The complainants would not dare present themselves with such a charge. There was some mistake.
Moreover, he would not, in any event, abandon Aouda, but to escort her to Hongkong, so that the steamer leaves anyone, observed Passpartout
nervously. "We shall be on board by noon," replied his master placidly. It was said so positively that Passpartout could not help muttering to himself, "Parbleu, that's certain."
"But before noon we shall be on board," but he was by no means reassured.
At 8:30 the door opened. The policeman appeared, and, requesting them to follow him, led the way to an adjoining hall.
It was evidently a coat rooms, and a crowd of Europeans and natives already occupied the rear of the apartment.
Mr. Fogg and his two companions took their places on a bench opposite the desk of the magistrate and his clerk. Immediately after, Judge Obadiah, a fat, round man, followed by the clerk, entered.
He proceeded to take down a wig which was hanging on nails, and put it hurriedly on his head. "The first case," said he.
Then, putting his hand to his head, exclaimed, "This is not my wig." "No, your worship," returned the clerk, "it is mine."
"My good mistress, Oyster Person, how can I judge to give a wise sentence in a clerk's wig?" The wigs were exchanged.
Who was getting nervous, for the hands on the face of the big clock over the judge seemed to go around with terrible rapidity. "The first case," repeated Judge Obadiah.
"Phileas Fogg?" demanded the Oyster Fogg. "I'm here," replied Mr. Fogg. "Passpartout, present." "Lieutenant Passpartout, good," said
the judge. "You had been looked for, prisoners, for 2 days on the trains from Bombay." "But what are we accused?" asked Passpartout impatiently. "You are about to be informed."
"I'm an English subject, sir," said Mr. Fogg, "and I have the right. Have you been ill-treated?" "Not at all. Very well. Let the complaints come in."
A door was swung open by order of the judge, and 3 Indian priests entered. "That's it," muttered Passpartout. "These are the rogues who were going to burn our young lady."
The priests took their place in front of the judge, and the clerk proceeded to read in a loud voice complaint of the sacrilege against the fierce Fogg at 7 foot.
Accused of having violated a place held consecrated by the Brahmin religion. "You hear the charge?" asked the judge. "Yes, sir," replied Mr. Fogg, consulting his watch, "and I admit it."
You admit, I admit it. I wish to hear these priests admit in their turns what they were going to do at Passpartout's village.
The priests looked at each other. They did not seem to understand what was said. "Yes," cried Passpartout warmly, "at the pagoda of Pillagei, where they were on the point of burning their victim."
The judge stared with astonishment at what the priest's words stupefied. "And what victim?" said the judge of the dead. "Boom!" in Bombay, sir.
Said Passpartout. "Certainly, we are not talking of the pagoda of Pillagei, but of the pagoda of Malabar Hill at Bombay."
And as is proved at its clock, here are the desecrators, the brochures which he left behind him, whereupon he placed the fair of them.
Passpartout, in his surprise, permitting this imprudent exclamation to escape him.
The confusion of master and man had quite forgotten the affair at Bombay, for which they were now detained at Calcutta, as may be imagined.
Fix, the detective, had foreseen the advantage which Passpartout's escapade gave him, and, delaying his departure for 12 hours, had consulted the priests of Malabar Hill.
And knowing that the English authorities dealt very severely with this kind of misdemeanor, he promised them a goodly sum in damages and employed to.
Owing to the delay caused by the rescue of the young widow, Fix and the priest reached the Indian capital before Mr. Fogg and his servant, the magistrates having been
already sworn device dispatched to arrest them through their life. Fixed disappointment. When you learn that first Fogg had not made it to appearance in Calcutta may be imagined.
He made up his mind that the robber had stopped somewhere on the route and taken refuge in the southern provinces.
But when his 4 hours fixed, watched the stations with the feverish anxiety, lost he was lured by seeing Miss Fogg and Passpartout arrived accompanied by
a young woman, whose presence he was wholly at a loss to explain. He hastened for a policeman, and this was how the party came to be arrested and brought before Judge Obadiah.
Had Passpartout been a little less preoccupied, he would have excused the detective's astonished and corner of the courtrooms, watching the proceeding with its interest easily understood border.
Warrant had failed to reach him at Calcutta, as it had done at Bombay and Suez.
And Judge Obadiah had unfortunately caught Passpartout's rash exclamation, which the poor fellow would have given the word to record the facts are admitted, asked the judge.
"Admitted," replied Mr. Fogg coldly.
As much, resumed the judge, as English law protects equally sternly the allegiance of the Indian people, as the man the Passpartout has admitted, he violated the sacred power of the Malabar Hill.
At Bombay, on the 20th of October, I condemn the said Passpartout to imprisonment for 15 days and a fine of £300.
£300? cried Passpartout, startled at the loudness of some silence. Shouted the constable.
"Inasmuch," continued the judge, "as it is not proved that the act was not done by the connivance of the master with the servant, and as the master in any case must be held responsible for the acts of his paid
servants, I condemn Spirit Fogg to a week's imprisonment and a fine of £150.
Fix rubbed his hands softly with satisfaction. If Phileas Fogg could be detained in Calcutta a week, it would be more than time for the warrant to arrive. Passpartout was stupefied.
And this sentence to ruin his master as the wager of £20,000 lost, because he, like a wretched fool, he had gone into that abominable pagoda.
As Fogg, as self-composed as if the judgment did not in the least concern him, did not even lift his eyebrows while it was being pronounced.
Just as the clerk was calling the next case, he rose and said, "I forbear." You have the right, returned the judge.
Fix's blood ran cold, but he resumed his composure when he heard the judge announce that the bail required for each prisoner would be £1,000.
I'll pay at once, said Mr. Fogg, taking a roll of bank bills from the carpet bag in which Passpartout had by him, placing them on the clerk's desk.
This sum will be restored to you upon your release from prison, said the judge. Meanwhile, you are liberated on bail. Come, said Phileas Fogg to his servant.
About let them, at least they give me back my shoes, and cried Passpartout angrily. And these are pretty dear shoes, he muttered, and they were handed to him.
More than £1,000 apiece. Besides, they pinch my feet. Mr. Fogg, offering his arm to Aouda, then departed, followed by the crestfallen Passpartout.
Fix still nourished the hopes that the Earl would not afterwards leave the £2,000 behind him. Narrow decided out the district in jail and issued forth out money.
Carriage and the party were soon landed on one of the quays. The Rangoon was moored half a mile off in the harbor, its signal of departure hoisted at the masthead.
11 o'clock was striking. Mr. Fogg was an hour's in advance of time. Fix saw them leave the carriage and pushing off in a boat as the steamer stamped his feet with disappointment.
The rascal is off after all, he exclaimed. £2,000 sacrificed. He's as prodigal as a thief.
I'll follow him to the end of the world if necessary, but at the rate he is going on, the storm money will soon be exhausted. The troops was not far wrong in making this conjecture.
Since leaving London, what with travelling expenses, bribes, the purchase of the elephant, bails and fines, Mr. Fogg had already spent more than £5,000 on the way, and the percentage of the sum
and the sum recovered from the banker promised to the detectives was laughter diminishing.
End of chapter 15.
Okay, this is my